Sam. I'm the founder of a company called Little Yellow Bird, which was founded about 2-3 years ago. And what we do is we make ethically made corporate workwear. So we supply, scroll through, everything from t-shirts, business shirts. It's kind of what we started with, but now we do other things. We've done socks, caps, beanies, tablecloths, pretty much anything that's made out of a textile. We've made it before. And I kind of started or got involved in this company in a really roundabout way. So Matt mentioned before that I grew up in Indonesia, and that definitely had a huge impact on me wanting to start this business. So when I was in high school, I used to pass this river each day, and what I found out about this river was that 80% of the population of Jakarta relied on this river for their drinking water. But at the same time, there's about 200 factories that are dumping toxic waste into the same river to make clothing that we all wear, which to me just seemed absolutely crazy. Like, why did we even have this situation? But I didn't really, at the time, know what to do about that. I also had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. So I ended up joining the Air Force. I did that under a scholarship, so they paid for my university. I studied business. Again, I still had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, but I thought that this seemed like a good approach because I got free university out of it. And then I got thrown into this job. So I was the supply chain manager for the P3 Orion aircraft, which meant that I was in charge of a team of people that kind of managed all the spare parts and purchasing of new parts to keep these aircraft operational. And that's actually also, these skills have proven to be really valuable for starting a fashion company. And you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you, but managing a supply chain for this aircraft is a lot more simple than managing a supply chain for clothes, which also seems crazy. So anyway, while I was at the Air Force, I continued my studies and I did a master's in international security. And I became super passionate and interested in all different international security threats, one of which is human trafficking. And I kind of did a lot of research on it, and what I found was that the garment industry played a huge role in this major global threat that we have, which is human trafficking. The more I researched, the more I found out, and I was really shocked by a lot of the things that I found out, and I was actually probably more shocked that I just didn't know about these things. So one of them is that we throw away 80 billion items of clothing each year, most of which end up as textile land waste. And this is 400% more than 20 years ago. So the amount of stuff that we just buy has just been increasing exponentially, which is pretty crazy. The other thing I found out about in my studies was the impact of migration because of a result of basically the garment industry. And this example has always stuck with me. So this is the Aral Sea, which was once the world's 4th largest lake, and it's now 1/10 of its original size as a result of over-irrigation for cotton farming. So the way that conventionally grown cotton is made requires a lot of water input. And because most of this cotton is grown in developing countries, often the infrastructure that's used is really poor quality, which means a lot of water is wasted and it doesn't end up where it's supposed to. So this whole region has been really over-farmed for cotton, and this has been the result of that over-farming. So what we do things quite differently. Sidebar. How I got into starting the uniform company was basically, I got the idea when I left the military, having always just worn a uniform, always been provided a uniform, and because of that, never actually buying a lot of my own clothing, to all of a sudden having to buy heaps of stuff, or thinking that I needed to buy heaps of stuff. So I went from living in this uniform to having to buy stuff and just could not find anywhere. There was nothing that was ethically made, organic, or fair trade for corporate workwear. So I thought I'd just start my own company, which I thought would be pretty simple, but it turned out it wasn't. So my first barrier was that I literally could not get anyone to return my calls. So I emailed hundreds of different manufacturing companies, all in India and Indonesia. No one wanted to deal with a startup. So in the end, I had to go over to India, and I ended up volunteering in this unit in Bangalore. And I basically just said, hey, I'm really interested in this. I want to come over. I've got all these skills in supply chain. Can I help you for a month? And that turned out to be way more effective than just, can you make some stuff for me? So I went over there, started working for this company, and now we're actually their largest customer. So we've continued working with them and growing with them over the last couple of years. And we still work really closely with them. They've grown as we've grown, which is also really awesome. And we now also work with about 4 other factories throughout India for different products. So this is one of our newest factories. This is Delhi's first green factory. So they rely exclusively on solar. As you can see, there's like really good lighting and ventilation, which is something that doesn't occur in a lot of garment factories. And everyone is paid fairly. There's no one below the age of 18 that works there. They also have an edible garden on their roof, which I think is pretty cool. But that's only one part of it. So in the whole garment industry, a lot of people think, oh, ethically made or fair trade or even New Zealand made is good. But that's actually only a really small percentage of the entire supply chain. So actually, where a lot of the issues occur, in particular around environmental issues or labour issues, occur further along the supply chain, and particularly in rural areas where it's often less regulated. So not only do we know where our clothes are made, but we go all the way back through each step. And in cotton, it's hugely complicated. So how your cotton is grown, picked, there's a process called ginning, then it's woven, spun, dyed, and then finally stitched. And we are involved in all of those stages. So this is a co-op that we work with. We work with 2 co-ops in East India. One's called Chetna and one's called Pratima. And they're involved with basically converting conventionally grown cotton farms into organic cotton farms. So that means that our cotton's grown without the use of pesticides and insecticides. And another really key difference is that most of our cotton is grown relying exclusively on natural rainwater. So I mentioned earlier on that a lot of cotton is ruining the areas because they're being over-irrigated. And that's often because cotton is grown in places where it probably shouldn't be. And we're trying to unnaturally make the land produce multiple crops per year. So we only do 1 crop per year, which means it's grown during the rainy season. When it's raining, we don't need irrigated water to grow our cotton. So the impact from an environmental perspective is much lower. What we've done over the last couple of years is that we have managed to convince companies, in particular ethically minded companies, that they should be thinking about where their uniforms come from as well. So these are some of our customers. Wellington Chocolate Factory, they wear our aprons. They also share similar philosophies and that they know exactly all the origins of their raw materials that go into their chocolate bars. We've also provided uniforms or merchandise for companies such as Misprint. Again, they're someone that really cares about sustainability and they repurpose notebooks. You can just scroll through these are just pictures. But we've provided our uniforms now to 50 companies in New Zealand. And we're getting to the point now where we're doing a bunch of different things. It's starting to become really exciting and we are moving out of that startup phase into being more of a small business. But that hasn't come without lots and lots of challenges. We have, as the previous speaker mentioned, and I could totally identify with what she was saying, we've gone through some of the biggest highs and the lowest lows during this journey. And if someone had told me just how hard it was going to be, I don't think I would have believed them. But yeah, what I can also reiterate from the previous speaker is that after every really low point, we've had something really amazing happen to us. So about 18 months ago, the person that I originally started this business with kind of decided she didn't want to be involved with it anymore. And she wanted to move overseas. And I kind of at the time remember thinking back, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. Like, I'm going to be doing this alone now. It's not going to work. And we actually hadn't really sold anything at that point. So we'd sold about $10,000 worth of product by that point. So we'd had like a couple of people interested, but not really. She didn't think it was going to work, which is why she was throwing in the towel. And I was like, I don't know why exactly, but I was just like, no, I really do think there's something here. Or I don't know, I was just really passionate about what we were doing and I'd met the people in India and I really felt this like real deep connection that if we could do well, then they could do well, and it was an important enough issue for me to keep going. But the important thing about that is about 2 weeks later, we ended up being selected for the BNZ Startup Alley competition, which we ended up winning, and we won about $20,000 through that. And then, like, that same week, we got selected into a program called Lightning Lab, which gave us another $20,000 to continue validating our business. And also in that same week, we got our first, like, big-ish customer. So, like, that's like a super great example of when bad things happen, if you keep working on it, if you've really got something, you've got to make that decision of, are you really just still going after something that's never going to work, or if there's really something there, then that, I guess, resilience and determination can turn into something good. And that's just one example. So recently we've had another really great example of this where we just had this like disaster of an order. A whole bunch of product came in, the logos were wonky, we had to send it back, we disappointed a customer, one of our biggest customers, and we were just like, again, it was like we were just like flushing $20,000 down the toilet, goodbye. And we were like, again, is what we're doing right? Is this gonna work? And we really seriously had to like ask ourselves those questions again. And we decided it was, and we kept going, and we've taken that hit for the long-term benefit that we're hoping it will bring in. But again, then the following week, we ended up getting a new customer inquiry that turned into a sale really quickly. And now our second largest customer is actually an American-based customer in Texas who just found us online and was like, we've been looking for something like this for months and you're perfect and we want to work with you. So again, like if we'd just given up, like that wouldn't have happened. And so yeah, it's just an emotional kind of roller coaster of a journey, any business. But yeah, and team is also super important for us. So this is some of our team, and this is with a girl, Renuka, who I first met when I went to India. And I met her, she's the daughter of one of the cotton farmers who we buy our cotton from. And I just really remember her telling me about her life, and she didn't really want anything from me, but she was just telling me how she really wanted to go to school, but her family wasn't able to support her, and she spent her days making these like paper plates that her family did as extra income. And I kind of asked around, how much would they need for her to be able to go back to school, and it worked out to be about $200, which to me is not a lot of money at all, but to them it meant a whole lot. And so at the time, we actually didn't have a business. We hadn't really sold anything, but I knew that I wanted the company to be based upon values of supporting the communities where we get our products from. And so I said, okay, well, if you manage it, I'll pay the few $100s that she needs to go to school. And I went back in December last year, and I got to go back to the same village and meet her again. And this is her in her school uniform. She's studying sciences, and she wants to become a doctor. So that's like, to me, that these are the types of examples that I'm like, this is awesome. Like, even if our business doesn't end up being a multi-million-dollar company, we've made a huge impact on this one person's life. And sometimes that's just as important. Like, if we make small changes, collectively, we'll end up making huge changes. Suchi, on your right, she works for us as well. She's on the ground full-time in India. She understands the culture, she understands the language, and that's like a huge part of how we've been able to be successful and keep our products most of the time to a good quality and get things moving. This is just a quote that I think is super important because I think it's like the next generation's responsibility to make sure we fix some of these problems that are occurring in the world. And it's not really about blaming who caused them or whatever. We just collectively need to help fix it or create some positive benefits. So yeah, every day we make dozens of decisions about what we buy and from who. But how often do we think about where they come from and how many lives they've touched? If each of us are the sum of our choices, then let them be powerful ones. And so to me, that's why we, I guess, are doing what we're doing and why we identify as a social enterprise. So we believe that business can be used as a force for good. We didn't want to follow the charity model because it relies too much on grants or on people liking your cause enough. We like to have control and we like to make impact, but that impact is directly as a result of the benefit that we create from our business. So since starting, we've done about 5,000 units now, and that's actually been over the last year. So the previous year to that was more like setting up our supply chains and also not selling as much as we had hoped we would, but this year's been really good for us. But through those products, we've also, because we're not relying on irrigated water, those 5,000 products mean we've saved about 10 million litres of water. We've also saved around 1,000 kilograms of chemicals and insecticides and pesticides being used because we're not using conventional cotton. And we've been able to support girls like Renuka. So we've supported about 4 school projects with girls like her. We've funded 2 schools to provide computers and educational resources. And we've also been working with a program to fund microloans to the cotton farmers and the communities where we purchase our cotton from.